Welcome back to my channel. Today we have an exciting book tag to do, and it's the mid-year freakout book tag. I've done this tag last year. I'm not really up to date with any other current tags, but this one I like because it gives us time to reflect on all the books that we read halfway throughout the years, remembering some of the good books or not so good books that we might have forgotten already. So I like this because it's very reflective, and it's good to see what you actually have read, because oftentimes we think we're reading too little. So it actually made me feel good to do this. And it also, part of the tag is about upcoming releases and upcoming books you want to read, so that's also a good refresher. So without further ado, we're gonna get right into it. I have a Shakespeare shirt, so I'm very on brand today. Let's just start with the first question. So the first question is best books you've read so far in 2024. I had a hard time kind of narrowing it down, but I did decide on 3 books, and the way that I went about this is that the books that I kept thinking about even after I've read them, or the books that really made me want to go and write, those are the books that usually stick with me. So I'm gonna go with the order that I read them. First one is A Study in Drowning by Eva Reed. I had filmed a weekly reading vlog for this one, so if you want to know more of my thoughts, you can go watch that one. But I really like the lyrical and the atmosphere of this book, so it really reminded me what writing can do and how it can blend multiple genres while still having a good main character, a very fleshed out main character with different motives. So for that, I chose this one. Obviously, I had to choose Romantic Outlaws by Charlotte Gordon because this book, it sat with me for over a few months, and I would say even up to a year. But I read the bulk of it at the beginning of this year, and it really transformed me in some ways. It really made me close to both Mary Shelley and Mary Wollstonecraft, and it made me appreciate what they've done for the literary world and for women's rights. And it really made me think about topics of art and immortality and justice further. Sometimes when I write something, I feel like it's an ode to these 2 romantic literary figures, and I just can't get enough, and I really highly recommend it. I've talked at length about this book. I'm writing a big review on it, and I think it's gonna come up in anything that I write going forward. Another one that was very transformative and healing for me, and one that made me think, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Why am I not pursuing writing with more vigor? Why have I diluted myself in the last 2-3 years because I should be taking more traditional paths or more conventional ways of living about as a creative person? And this one really just reminded me, you need to be the one to advocate for yourself, advocate for your art, to be the one to say, you know what, this has never been done before, but I will be the one to do it. And it's no less Walk Through Walls, a memoir by Marina Abramovich. This was so good. I am so in awe by her. I know she's a very controversial figure, but if you really want to know about her, I think the best thing to do would be to read her memoir. She is so insightful. She is so current in her times, in her history, in her culture, but also in the way that the world was working. And I just think she's phenomenal, and she really made me appreciate that, as an artist, you don't have to fit the mold. You can break the mold, and you can reinvent the mold, and you can even reinvent your past projects. And for that, this was life-changing to me. And I read these 2 very close, and it just really helped me at a moment of crisis in my own creative journey. So for that, I really highly recommend these 2 books. The second question is best sequel you've read so far in 2024. I did not really read any sequels, so I chose Iron Flame by Rebecca Yarros because I read this at the beginning of the year, and it's probably the only sequel that I read, but I really did enjoy it. and it reminded me that I used to have such a big and profound love for fantasy. I'm not saying that this is the best fantasy, it's really not. It just really reminded me how much I do love fantasy and how I would like to go back and finish some of the fantasy series that I started, and you know, dedicate myself also to maybe a year of fantasy. I don't know. It's just so easy to stop reading from one specific genre, or it's so easy to stick to one genre. I, as you guys know, read from everywhere and everything, but I think sometimes I put off series now because it's just too much work and it's too much dedication, but I don't think it should be that way. Like, I really would like to read the Lord of the Rings trilogy. I really would like to finish the Game of Thrones series and so many more books of that genre. And actually reading A Study in Drowning, although it's a standalone, really reminded me that I do like speculative fiction, I like magical realism, and I also like sci-fi and fantasy, so I should get back to it. I remember the last sci-fi that I read was Dune, and Dune was something that I really loved, and I recorded it on this channel. That was like one of the first videos on this channel. So really, maybe I need the next winter to dedicate myself more to fantasy, because right now it's summer and I have a lot of projects that I'm reading books for. But I think shifting into the fall time, I'm going to go back to bigger books, dark academic books, and then I want to tackle some fantasy books. So let me know what are some of your favorite fantasy series. The next question is new release you haven't read yet but you want to. I only have 2 books to answer to this because those are the 2 books that I can think of that I bought as a new release. And the first one is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo, and the second one is Knife by Salman Rushdie, because those 2 books were like on my top books to read this year, and I have talked about them but I have not read them. But I will say the reason why I haven't read them yet is because I have 2 audiobooks loaned for those 2 books and they're taking like months. I guess what I'm hoping now is that these loans will come in before the end of the year, basically. Now the next question is most anticipated new releases for the second half of the year, and I also have 2 books that I have and 2 books that I actually pre-ordered, and those are probably the only pre-orders I have left for this year. I have Intermezzo by Sally Rooney, because obviously she's one of my favorite authors, and since I enjoy Ava Reed's books so much, I really can't wait for her Lady Macbeth book. And I am a big Shakespeare fan, and I took like 2 courses on Shakespeare in my undergrad, so I still can confidently say that Macbeth remains my favorite play, or one of my favorite plays of all time. So I cannot fucking wait to see the creative mind of Ava Reed with one of my favorite plays combined into a novel form, because I think that's gonna be so fucking amazing, and I just can't wait for that. And I think it's coming out in August, so I'll be reading that as soon as I get a copy. Like, this time I'm not procrastinating, I'm gonna be reading that. And same goes for Sally Rooney's new book, which I think is coming out in September. Let me know what other new releases are coming out at the second half of the year, because I have no idea. I feel like I'm a little bit out of the loop this year. Most years I know, and there was a big list of books, but this year I think it's just that I have too many books that I want to finish reading before I could even think about that. So the next question is biggest disappointment, and I have 3 books here. I will go again in order. I will go with this one. The first one I have here is Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton. I did not hate this. I did not like this. I'm a little bit indifferent to it. I've been reading it for almost a year, and I literally just finished it like on my phone when I was working flights and there was like time off and whatnot. So it's a good book to pick up like if you want to just read a chapter here and there, but all in all, like, it was just so lackluster for me. Like, on the one hand, I get it, it's like about her 20s and how like the biggest love that she's ever had is her friendships, but it still just felt so flat and just so self-indulgent, but not in a good way. Like, I have memoirs and books that of people that are so self-indulgent and people hate them, but I love them so much. So this one was just one that was not it for me, and it really sucks, but I do enjoy her like writing style, or the way that she just freely writes. So I am going to pick up her other books because I think she does deserve a second chance, but I just am very disappointed because I thought this was going to be like a new favorite memoir, because I love personally memoirs, as you know, like Romantic Outlaws was a biography, and Marina Abramovich, Walk Through Walls, that was her memoir, right? But this one was not it. The next one is Master Thieves by Stephen Krikjan. I also did not enjoy this one. I think it's just the writing style or the journalistic approach. I think I just really thought it would give me more, not answers, but more clues, and I thought I would get something more out of this, but like I said previously on my channel, I think it's just better to just watch the documentary on Netflix called This Is a Robbery to learn about the art theft at the Isabella Gardner Museum. So yeah, I just don't recommend reading this one. And the next one is Ghost Written by David Mitchell. The reason why I picked this up is because it's so similar to one of my novels that I need to edit, and I thought that picking this up would give me the drive to go and finish that novel and edit it. That did not happen because this book took me 7 months to read it. Like, I had it in my purse for the whole year, reading it here and there. You know, towards the end it did redeem itself, but I thought this was going to be a new favorite, and this was also recommended on Emmy Reed's channel, so I really like trusted her recommendation. I mean, she read this like years ago, so that's how I figured this book out. I was watching one of her videos randomly one day, and I was like, oh wait, this sounds like something that I would love and something that relates to my novel, but fortunately I did not like it. I will be giving David Mitchell another chance because I'm just such a well-meaning person, and I love to give second chances somehow. So yeah, that's that. Now the next question is biggest surprise, and I have 3 books here again just to even it out, and these 3 books are all to do with art, artists, art crime. Actually no, one of them is to do with art thief, one is like it's kind of like a crime, and the other one is just more about the artistic lives. So I'm gonna go through these quickly because or else this video is never gonna end. And I do plan on like talking about these 2 books on my May and June, July wrap up whenever they come out this month. So let's start in order. This first one that I read is Anita de Monte Laughs Last by Xochitl Gonzalez, and this was actually a new release this year, so I was good and I read it. It basically follows Anita de Monte, but it also follows Raquel, and it follows them through different times in history and how their story ends up intertwining. This has to do a lot about women's place in art, also about Latin American artists, female artists, and just the way that this story was interwoven was just so magical, and it you were just rooting for these women, and you're rooting that this time around things in life would change, you know. And I think this did such a beautiful job at that, and I just highly recommend it. Like I said, I'm just gonna talk more in depth when my monthly wrap-up comes around, but just know that if you like that, if you like something to do with feminist art, you should definitely read this one. Then I have The Art Thief by Noah Charney. The reason why this one is on here is that I like that it was like so not serious. It was just a fun book, but also you could tell that the author, who is an art historian, he knew his shit, and he played with stereotypes and tropes. Like, this book is pretty old, like I think it's like dated, and you could tell by that, and people have said this is like Dan Brown but like not serious and not good, but I really liked it because it was just so fun to read, and it really made me want to research more about art and iconography and how to read art. This was like a good book to make you like interested from someone who has nothing to do with art and art history, and I think I needed that. I needed something light to read, and this one was definitely it. And again, it had this fun aspect of like art forgery, art stealing, art thievery, people from different sectors coming in. So this was like Master Thieves, but in a fun way. And actually they even talk about the Isabella Gardner Museum. So I think this book is set in the late 90s, and it was written in the late 90s. So yeah, I just liked it. That's why it was a surprise. And then the final art book that was a big surprise to me is Sirens and Muses by Antonia Ingres. Again, we follow a cast of characters, 4 characters, and how their artistic lives intertwine, and the dialogue that comes about art and politics, art and the rights of art, like what does it mean to make art that will harm people, and the limitation of art, like what is art, what can art be, what can art do. This one was an amazing book, and it also has queer representation. The next question is favorite new author, debut, or new to you? And I have 3 answers. First one is Ava Reid, because I really enjoyed A Study in Drowning, and I feel like I'll resonate with her other works and her new work, but I'm not too sure if I could say that yet. And another one that I haven't mentioned yet, but I read this book at the beginning of this year, and I really like it, and I want to pick up everything else he has written, and is Stoner by John Williams. As an academic person, as a person that likes to pursue my academic and my non-academic interests, this one really made me reflect and think, and this one was very somber at times, and I can understand why this is a classic, and I can understand why it has been recommended to anyone that has studied an English degree or a literature degree. So this one was fantastic. But I also have these 2 books that I read at the beginning of the year, which is Eileen and My Year of Rest and Relaxation by Ottessa Moshfegh. So not only did I say that I wanted to read Ottessa Moshfegh, I read this one, and then I couldn't help myself to read this one, and I watched a movie of Eileen. I talked about this on my channel before, but definitely she is one of my new favorite authors, and I have read her books luckily, but I think I'm going to take a break and take my time at reading her backlist, because we never know when the next book is coming, but definitely she is a new favorite as well. Then we have newest fictional crush. I don't think I can answer that question because I didn't read any of those books that have like people to crush on per se. Like, I'm just thinking about it. I guess I could say Mary Shelley and Mary Wollstonecraft, but they are not fictional. They're very much real. So I would say that. I guess I have nothing else really to say. I did read The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, and I guess I could say Evelyn Hugo because I find that she's such a complex character. So if she was real, I'd definitely be in love with her. So I guess I could say Evelyn Hugo. The next question is newest favorite character. I think I'm gonna go with Dr. Van Helsing in Dracula because he really made this story interesting and good, and he was very much of a sentimental father-like figure, so I really liked them. I will also maybe tentatively say Eileen by Ottessa Moshfegh. Eileen specifically, but I feel like that's such a red flag to say. But I want to say Eileen just because she was very much a troubled person and she was very raw, so she felt very real to me. So I don't want to say she's like my favorite newest character, but she's definitely one that I was thinking about after reading the book. So I guess we'll leave it at that. So the next question is books that made you cry. I'm a big crier, but I don't think I've been crying as much lately in these books. Maybe because these books are more, I don't know. I do recall crying for The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. I read this not too long ago and I was crying like the entire way through, halfway through the book. So even though I knew what would happen or I had an inkling, I still was crying all the way through. Also Romantic Outlaws, I cried and I filmed it when Mary Shelley officially dies in their recounting of her life, and it was too much to bear. Like after holding on to the weight of everything that the two Marys went through when Mary Shelley died, it was just like it was too much for me to bear. I also have The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. There are some passages, some essays that he's written that really made me cry. I have it here. I think it's the one that's about Auld Lang Syne. I don't know if that's how you say that. And it's about his friend that died of cancer, and just the way that he speaks about her and speaks about life and speaks about hope really makes me tear up. John Green is one that always can make me cry basically, essentially, and this one was no different. So especially that one essay really made me bawl my eyes out like a little kid. So yeah. The next question is books that made you happy. I don't really think any of these books made me like happy throughout. So I will say that I can confidently say Bride by Ali Hazelwood, because this was just so needed, and it made me so giggly at times, and it made me just so, you know. But this was also more of a serious type of romance kind of book, but it did make me happy. I do remember being happy. Like, I wanted to film a vlog of myself reading it and criticizing it, but I just read it like in a span of like 2 nights, and it was just so good that I was like in a good mood and whatnot. So yeah, I guess that one. Next question is most beautiful book you've bought or received this year. I'm gonna go with Ripe. I don't remember the author's name. I just love this cover. Since seeing this cover, I'm like, I need to own this book. And another book that I have that I really enjoyed, sorry, I'm just looking down on my phone, is Thirst. And that's another new release this year that I did not read, so I could have added that to the new release list. So Thirst, definitely just love, and I'm obsessed with the cover. That was when I was having my vampire kick, obviously, but I did not get to read that book. And the final questions is, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? So I have so many. Obviously, we've talked about the new releases, so I'm not going to go through those again. But I want to say the ones that I really want to read are big books, and books that I'm like kind of saving for fall time and long reading vlogs. So we have A Little Life by Hanayana Gahara. I literally picked it up a few years back, like back in 2020, 2021. I read the first part. It was too much for me. I was dealing with too much. I could not read it. So I think I'm ready to read it. I'm kind of scared still, but I want to read it. I also have The Goldfinch by Donna Tartt. I really want to read this one. I wanted to read it back in the springtime, but I just didn't have time with everything that was going on. So I want to read The Goldfinch. I obviously love and adore The Secret History. It's one of my favorite novels. So I've just been saving The Goldfinch for a calm weekend, I guess. I also have the biography of X, because it's by Catherine Lacey, I think, or Catherine Lacey, and I've only heard good things about this one, and it looks like it's the type of book that I love, where there's a lot of subjects being broached at once, and someone even had said to me like, this is very much your type of book. I also want to read Poor Things because I want to watch the movie. I also want to read Your Brain on Art, and I also want to read The Count of Monte Cristo, and I want to read that in French because I have volume 1 and volume 2 in French, and I just know that it's going to be like a long project or a month-long project, and it would challenge me to try to review it and speak about it in French while I'm reading it in French. But it's something I want to do because I want to keep my French intact, and I want to keep those cogs of like dissecting literature in French intact. You know, I haven't been really reading much French literature since my master's in French literature, so I think that one would be a good one to read maybe in the fall or winter time and film a French related video. Those were the books. Those were all the books. That's the mid-year book freakout tag. Let me know what are some of the books that you've read, what are some of your favorite, least favorite, most anticipated books to read for the rest of the year. And yeah, I really enjoyed doing this tag. This tag really made me think and really made me evaluate things and put things in perspective. I've read about almost 40 books, so that's pretty good. I really do want to read more books, and I think now that I have more time, I definitely will be reading more books in the second half. So I'm definitely going to try to film monthly wrap-ups on time. So yeah, let me know what books I should read, what books that you think I would love after hearing my thoughts about all these books that I read so far in this year. And I would love to talk to you in the comments, and I'll see you on the next bookish or writing video. Bye!